necessarily those of 91.3 FM WBNY, the United Students Government at Buffalo State, or Buffalo State itself. Due to the opinionated nature of these programs, listener discretion is highly advised. If you have any questions or comments about today's program, you can give us a call at 716-878-5104.
To join Mr. Hare on today's Living for the People, dial 878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. Or go to facebook.com/91.3 WBNY and comment there. That's facebook.com/91.3 WBNY.
All right, welcome to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan Hare, your host. Welcome you to our broadcast, focused on providing you insight into events shaping our national and regional world and the facts behind those events and policies that are shaping our world for today and for tomorrow. Join us weekly on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. following Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! Program. And of course, our program is live, so you can call and you can join our discussion. We hope that you will. Our number here again is 716-878-5104. That's 716-878-5104. We're also here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Good morning, sir.
There you go. Get in that mic. You know, we got to hear you. We heard y'all last week, so I've got to hear you in the mic. And, of course, we're here with Willie H., who does the live streaming of the program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare. We got Mr. Hare back. He seems a little bit healthier, so glad to have him.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, but glad to have you back. Call in, guys, 716-878-5104.
All right. I want to take on a subject that I just think needs to be better understood. In terms of this whole situation, which being referred to as a war between Israel and Hamas. You know, I'm going to put this on the citizen, Norm McCarter, and ask him that if you're fighting a war, isn't there like one side that you're fighting against another side that you're fighting? There's a name for each side. You know, this war person A on this side and war person B on that side?
Yes, sir.
So if you're fighting a war between you and war person B, how come war person C, D, E, F, and G are getting killed all day long, even though they're not the ones who are fighting you? They're not shooting you. They're not bombing you.
Well, Mr. Harris,
am I making an ounce of sense?
Yes, you are. As we talked about the other day, first and foremost, you know, we can't even consider this a war. I guess what could you call it, a conflict or just a problem situation that something needs to be solved. But in this particular conflict, man, there's so much collateral damage going on, and then we have different entities from the outside, such as United States, for one, you know, helping Israel, which is our ally. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? This is just a tough situation. As you and I just got finished discussing a little while ago.
Right.
The way this goes back. I'll let you go ahead.
The conundrum here is Hamas is the entity that is put up as that's what Israel is at war with.
Yeah.
With Hamas. Mm-hmm. And Hamas articulates Israel as what it's at war with. Okay? So I get that.
Right.
Hamas attacks Israeli citizens. Period.
Right.
You know, if they can reach you, they try to get you. But they have limited capability.
I just want to just ahead. Ask since what we spoke about. I guess you taught us this. Hamas is not really part of Palestine. It's an organization within Palestine.
Right. Well, I guess the better way to say that is making your point. Hamas is not the Gaza Strip. Hamas is not Palestine. All of the people who are in Hamas are Palestinians, but not all of the people who are Palestinians are in Hamas.
Right.
That's the point that I'm trying to get us to understand.
I got you.
So if you understand it that way, if you got a beef with Hamas, then you would wage your campaign against the members of Hamas. You wouldn't wage your campaign against all the people on earth who come from the ethnic group that's called Palestinians, because the ethnic group that's called Palestinians didn't do anything to you. It's Hamas that did something to you.
Right.
So your fight is with Hamas, not with the Palestinian people.
Right.
But Israel is waging a war. They claim it's a war against Hamas, but the people who are being killed in the war are Palestinians. Now, everything has nuances, right? Nothing is like purely this is 100% true in all circumstances. But that's the world doesn't work like that. Very few things are 100% true in all circumstances. So I understand that there may be Palestinians who live in apartment complexes, throughout the Gaza Strip. There may be some Palestinians that support Hamas. Back in 2006, 2007, when they allowed a government to be elected to govern the Gaza Strip, the Palestinians voted majority for Hamas to be the governing entity, to be the governing administrative agency over the Gaza Strip. And that put them in charge of the hospitals, the schools, municipal services, garbage collection, all that sort of stuff. And they got money for doing this. This is a side story that I just never get my mind wrapped around.
All right.
If the money is coming to you from, the various entities in the world that are supporting the Palestinian people, and the money is being funneled to the administrative organization called Hamas, that's got to be tens or hundreds of billions of dollars or millions of dollars every year that's being put in your hands. Why would you blow off that money to go kill 1,400 Israeli people, and not only do you blow off that money, everything that you've built gets pummeled down to the ground. You have to build that stuff all over again.
Right.
And all of these people get killed. Why would you do that? To me, the people of Palestine, independent of all the other considerations that we're talking about, the people of Palestine should say, y'all Hamas people can't live here anymore. Y'all got to go live in Paris. You can't live in Palestine anymore because you're just too demented, for you to live in around us in Palestine. But that's a secondary issue. The point that I'm trying to get to is the Palestinian people are not Hamas. Hamas people are Palestinians, but Palestinians are just Palestinians. They're not necessarily Hamas. Just like you're a American, you're not a Republican. So people should not take it out on you if you're an American and Republicans do something that is distasteful. You would not think it would be okay for people who felt what you did was distasteful to take that out on you because you're an American, right? You would take that out on the Republicans. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense.
So that's what I really wanted to get my arms wrapped around here, because the conversation still is the same. Every time they talk about this situation that emerged in Palestine and Israel, they always start out with, and Hamas, they had viciously attacked Israel. They killed 1,400, Israeli citizens. I get that. Go ahead.
Can I just like to pose a question? Is it at all possible to, in some way, get Hamas out of the country? When it really boils down to it, I think that maybe if they weren't there could be resolution and maybe some certain things could be worked out with Palestine and Israel. If you maybe Netanyahu and whoever's in. I know right now they have someone that's in Hamas that's kind of in control, but that really shouldn't be the case. If they got rid of Hamas in some way, or if they left or stepped away, there could be resolution. That's kind of my question.
Well, there could be, but there hasn't, because the parties, both on the Palestinian side and on the Israeli side, actually don't want resolution. The Israelis want all of Palestine to become the promised land.
Okay.
And to be given to Israel, period. Okay? The Palestinians, who have lived in the promised land for literally tens of thousands of years, because the Palestinians is just a modern word for the people that lived in the land that used to be called Canaan.
Right.
Right? And before it was called Canaan, it was called something else. You know, you had Amorites and you had Hittites and you had Ammonites, you had Edomites, and you had every kind of ites, you know, on earth, you know, were living in Palestine because they were all essentially migrants from I would believe Southwest Asia, who migrated into the Mesopotamian region, which includes basically Turkey and Greece and Saudi Arabia and Syria and Egypt, you know, all that, you know, is sort of the Mesopotamian hub of civilization over there. All of that is where these people that are currently called Palestinians and the people that are called Israelites all came from outside to this area. They were not originally from this area, but the people that we refer to as the Palestinians, their ancestors have been there the longest.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, even that's not perfectly true, because the Israelites are the descendants, not according to me, but according to the Ezekiel? I think it's the book of Ezekiel that says that this is the prophets Ezekiel speaking to the Israelites, says that, speaking the words of God, says that your mother was an Ammonite, your father was a Hittite, essentially saying that you all are descendants of these other people. You were simply renamed, instead of being Jacob, you were renamed Israel. That became the clan name, you know, for the descendants of Abraham. Now remember, Abraham had another son, Ishmael. So whatever, you know, material Isaac was made out of, Ishmael was made out of the same thing, right? I mean, they got the same father. So clearly the people that eventually became called Israel are biologically the same people that came to be called the Arab states, you know, the Muslims and so on. They're the same biological people. They speak languages that are almost identical, you know, with each other. If you see how their languages are written, they're almost written the same. Mm-hmm. These are the same people, right? This is a political construct. This is not you know, who's the original Aboriginal people of Palestine issue. This is a political issue. But people use the Bible as the context to say, well, this is the Aboriginal land of Israel. Well, maybe that's what you say, but does that make it less the Aboriginal land of the Palestinians? Right. They were there before the Israelites got there. They were there while the Israelites were there. And when the Israelites stopped being a nation, the same Palestinian people were still there.
Exactly.
How do they lose their right to be Palestinian, you know, because your book says that this land was supposed to be given to Israel? So we're allowing a religious construct to inform how people are going to operate politically in the world. And that is always a difficult dance. Because if in order for us to come to resolution, I have to accept your religious construct. Your religious construct says that's my gold medallion. We can't settle unless you give me that gold medallion. Well, what if I don't want to give you the gold medallion? What if I want to keep my gold medallion, right? You know what I mean? That's a political issue.
Yeah.
And it needs to be talked about and resolved politically, but it's not. People are allowing this thing to be wrapped around people's religious constructs, which require you to believe, right? I mean, if you're from China, You don't know anything about Abraham or Isaac or Ishmael or Jacob. That had nothing to do with you, right? And there are a lot more people that live in Asia and Southeast Asia than there are people that live in Europe and, America, North and South. So if we're going to play that game, then they should be able to talk about Buddha and Tao and whatever the religious constructs are for the Chinese. They should say, well, this is what should be preeminent in the world, because that's what my books say. We have to get off of that. That can't be the way that we bring this thing to resolution, right? We have to deal with this differently. As I've said many times, the existence of Israel cannot be made to disappear. Can I make that make sense to us?
Yeah, it does.
No different than Kentucky can't be made to disappear. Alabama can't be made to disappear. Idaho can't be made to disappear. These are states of the United States. They exist already. They've been there since 1770 something. So they're not going to go away. Israel has been there since 1948. Whether you agree with Israel coming into existence or not, you can agree or disagree. It doesn't change the fact that 75 years have gone by and people are there with great-grandchildren that have been born to people living in Israel. You can't change that fact. That is on the ground. The Adirondacks can't come back today and say, well, we were the big tribe in Virginia, and so you should give this state back to us and make it the Adirondack state and not the Virginia state. No, you can't do that. I mean, you may want to do it. It may even seem fair, but want to do it and fair are not on the table. They're not participants in this contest. The reality is Virginia is in the hands of the United States, and the Adirondacks are just one of many other people that live in Virginia. If you got a beef with the United States over the Adirondacks, you can't settle that beef by saying that this is our Aboriginal territory, give us the state. Any more than African people can't settle their beef with the United States by saying, give us Georgia, Alabama, and South Carolina, and we'll go away. That dog ain't gonna hunt.
No.
It sounds cute, but that dog ain't gonna hunt, right? So you gotta let go of things that can't happen and only look at things that can happen. What can happen is you can take what's left of Palestine. You've already built up one half of Palestine in terms of Israel. They got modern buildings and water and waste treatments and water desalination. They got all kind of stuff. They're good to go. You could do the same thing with the Palestinian end of the Palestinian corridor and let them grow into a modern state and let everybody eat. And let everybody have a job. Let everybody have clean water. Let everybody have hospitals. You got to let this thing go, right? It has to go the way that I just described. It can't be any other way. The United States is spending anywhere from $3 to $10 billion a year to keep propping up Israel. Every time something goes on wrong, they go into the United States pocket and pull out money to go pay for the new weapons and the new soldiers and all. They went and hired 330-something people who were Jewish people that didn't live in Israel. They were just hanging out, in other countries. They went and rehired them and put money in their pocket. Where's that money coming from? Out of the pockets of Americans, right? I mean, we got to think this thing out differently, okay? And so the part that bothers me is the assertion that the Israelis have a right to defend themselves. We can't contest that. They absolutely have the right to defend themselves. But no one is asserting that the Palestinians have a right to food, clothing, shelter, a right not to be bombed in the night, by the Israelis, not to have to be in an ambulance going down the street to take people that have been injured by other bombings to a hospital and have the ambulances actually bombed on purpose by the Israelis. That cannot be okay. the United States should not be in a position where it is underwriting that. But the United States is in a position to underwrite that, is doing that right now. Joe Biden is doing that right now. He pays lip service. Pierre Trudeau, the French prime minister, they pay lip service to, well, we got to, do as best we can and not hurt any Palestinians. No, not as best you can. You should not be bombing the Palestinians, period. If you believe that the Hamas are burrowed into tunnels underneath the city of Gaza City and so on, if you believe that the Hamas are huddled up in apartments in the back of apartment buildings in Gaza City and so on, then you should get your troops and your tanks and you should be going down the streets of the Gaza Strip, and you should go block by block, building by building, find where the openings to these tunnels are, either take everything out of the tunnels or blow the tunnels up. I would just blow them up, blow the tunnels up, and, retake all of that space that may be occupied by Palestinian terrorists. You have to treat the terrorists as if they're criminals. But what Israel is doing is treating the terrorists as if they're a nation, and they're fighting a war against their nation, against the Hamas nation. There is no Hamas nation.
Right. And Biden basically, and all the other countries basically, like lip service, but we're the one that funded Israel with the money and the weapons and everything. So it's basically like us, saying, no, don't hurt Jimmy over here, but hey, Bob, here's a gun to shoot Jimmy. We can't do that.
We should not be in the position of us underwriting genocide.
Right.
Think about what. Let me read to you something. I think I did write this out. This is something that was said by a man called Yoav Gallant. He's the defense minister of Israel after this October 7th attack by the Hamas that killed 1,400 people. He says, quote, "I have ordered a complete siege on the Gaza Strip. There'll be no electricity, no food, no fuel. Everything is closed. We are fighting human animals, and we are acting accordingly." Now, he wasn't saying that he was fighting Hamas.
Right.
He didn't say that we're going to go through the Gaza Strip and find every building where there was an office that Hamas was using. We're going to interview people on the street and find out who the Hamas people are.
Right.
And if they don't help us, then we'll punish them too. But they gotta help us know who the criminals are, just like you do in this country, right? If somebody steals a car and hides the car in their garage, and then you come as the police, you come and interview the people that are on the property that you heard the car might be at. If the people don't tell you the truth, they get in trouble for aiding and abetting a criminal. Well, that's what should happen to the people in Gaza if they don't help the police forces identify who the criminals are. They should be held to account as aiding and abetting a crime. But they should not be attacked as a people. You should not have the right to be able, because you're mad at what Hamas did to you, instead of taking that out on Hamas, you're taking that out on all the Palestinian people. You've seen these pictures. Entire blocks are just busted down to the ground, right, where no people can live in them at all. Who's going to repair this? Because a day is going to come when this conflict is going to be over.
Right.
When that happens, all of these hundreds of blocks of Palestine's infrastructure, it's apartment buildings, it's schools, it's stores, it's supermarkets, it's businesses and so on. All of these things are now rubble, just blown up to bits, and now just rubble on the ground. Who's going to rebuild that? Who's going to rebuild the streets of Gaza? Who's going to rebuild the sewer lines?
Probably going to be us.
You know who's going to. You heard what Willie just said? Because Willie probably starting to write a check for himself right now. I guess I got to give him $8, my money, right? See, because somebody got to pay for it.
Well, the thing that bothers me, Mr. Hare, is that, they know those Israelites, the people in charge, know that it's Hamas that did the damage, but they got this thing. Well, they probably feel like, yeah, but the Palestine people accept them, so we don't care who at this point is directly involved in Hamas. They're Palestine, so we're gonna
Punish
Palestine,
all period.
Palestine,
right.
period.
Yep.
Right.
So today, as I was on my way down to the station, I believe the number is 10,200 Palestinians are dead
Wow.
from the Israeli bombings.
Wow.
1,400 Israelites were killed on October 7th. Horrible thing.
Right.
And roughhouse stuff needed to be done to get the people that did it.
Right.
But we're not doing roughhouse stuff to get the people
Right.
that did it.
Right.
We're doing roughhouse stuff to get the people who are Palestinians, period.
And even the Israelites people, they're protesting with other people that stop this now. Come on, guys. Stop
Yeah,
this.
I don't buy that protest either.
I seen the media.
I know. I seen them. I seen the movie. You know, it sounds.
It's a movie.
It sounds good. You know, you act like you really care.
Well, I do believe there's people that care. It's usually the people that's not directly involved with government or that 1% or whatever leaders. Those people care. I really do believe that.
Here's what I'm feeling. You know, you had 330 something Israelis or Jewish people who don't live in Israel, who have come back and joined as part of the reserves or the Ready Army and whatnot of Israel.
Right.
Right. They're attacking all of the Palestinians. They're not attacking Hamas. Mm-hmm. They're attacking all of the Palestinians. The United States is underwriting that attack, even though it's giving lip service. Think about the way it talks about people. The area where this incident occurred between Hamas and Israel is the border area between Hamas and Israel itself. So it's like the border, right? Mm-hmm. Now on the Gaza side of that border between Israel and Gaza, on the Gaza side of that border, you had people who had been stealing Palestinian lands. They had been just going into Palestinian houses, bum rushing the people in the houses, throwing them out of the houses, and taking over the house and say, "This is my house now." They don't call these people settlers. They don't call these people vigilantes. They don't even call these people Zionists. They call them settlers. Mm. Think about the word settlers. Mm. Now think about America. America moved across, out of the 13 colonies, right, and found its way towards the Mississippi Valley and Missouri and Nevada and Wisconsin and Colorado and so on and Montana. And what do they call those people? Settlers, right? Mm. Now, whose land were they settling? See, because the settlers are terrorists to the Native Americans, to the indigenous Americans, right? And even the word Americans is confusing. But the people who are indigenous to the North American continent, they are the victims, and they were being terrorized and victimized by European settlers. But we use the word settler because it sounds benign. It sounds like these were just, wonderful people, living down the block and so on. But they were thieves. They were taking land that belonged to somebody else and making it their own land. That's what some of these, they call them radical, Israelis, but that's what they were doing. And even though it was illegal what they were doing, nobody enforced the law. And after they got done taking stuff and then putting up their own fireplaces and putting up mailboxes with their names, on the mailbox, then they started calling these people settlers, right? So I just need for us to understand that friction that occurs between people in Gaza and people in Israel, it occurs because these Israelites, not all of them, but some of them, feel that they have the right to take any spaces in Palestine they want because they consider all of Palestine to be the promised land, and all of it therefore belongs to Israelites, not to the Palestinians, even though the Palestinians have been living there for thousands and tens of thousands of years. So it's important that we understand that context in order for us to have the right point of view of what's going on. I believe that you can treat the Hamas assault on the Israelites as a terrorist action and treat it as crime, right? I mean, if somebody came from, Al Pacino or, the Colombian cartel, and busted into Chicago and started taking space in Chicago, you wouldn't go attack Colombia. You would go and attack the cartel. Well, that's what the Hamas essentially is. It's a criminal organization. And you should go and attack them as a criminal organization. So what are the tactics that can be used to mount that attack? You can go literally house by house, building by building. It'll take time, and it'll cause more casualties to occur to Israelite soldiers. That will occur. But which would be worse? Incurring 40, 50, 60 Israeli soldiers getting killed as they mount this police action to find these Hamas people and bring them to justice? Which would be worse, to have that occur or to have 10,000 Palestinian citizens murdered in the streets of Palestine and having their homes destroyed, the blocks that they live on decimated, their hospitals destroyed, their schools destroyed, their businesses destroyed? Which is the worst thing to occur? And somebody needs to answer that question other than me, because I don't have any ability to enforce my answer. But somebody should be answering that question. I know we have people in the audience that must be hearing me. I'm pretty sure I've gotten on somebody's nerves, and may feel that I'm some sort of sympathizer to the Hamas. I'm not a sympathizer to Hamas. I think every Hamas person that was involved, should go to jail. If your laws say they should get executed, then they should get executed. Whatever the laws of your land are, they broke those laws. They should be punished. They should be found and punished for that. I just don't think that you have the right to punish the Palestinian people as a people,
right?
As opposed to punishing Hamas. I think you have to figure out how to get that done.
Two quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have any idea, or roundabout idea, about how many members there are in Hamas?
They claim that there's 40,000. Now, I don't believe this, but this is what the newspapers have said, that there are something in the area of 40,000 Hamas fighters, which may mean there may be 40,000 male Palestinian citizens who are not dead yet. That's who they're referring to as these fighters. I don't know whether that's true or not, but that's what they say.
And sympathizers, is that all together, or?
Right. Well, keep in mind, if you had 40,000 Hamas soldiers in the Gaza Strip, there's only 2.3 million people in the Gaza Strip in the first place. That would be an awful lot of visible soldiers, in that territory. I mean, think about that. That would be like a city the size of Chicago or the size of Toronto. Or the size of Philadelphia, and having 40,000 players, from some barbarous organization walking around the streets of a city that size, 40,000 of them.
But they all dress alike. I mean, everybody over there is very similar in look.
Well, let's say that they're correct. Even if they are correct, that doesn't change the paradigm. If you feel that the Hamas people are the problem, all Hamas are the problem, not just particular Hamas people, but if you feel that all of Hamas people are the problem, you still have to find a way for you to identify who those Hamas people are, to root those people out. And that seems to me that you got to have a campaign that literally goes door to door, building to building, all throughout the Gaza Strip, and find all of the infrastructure that the Hamas people have built. If they've got offices and communications facilities and tunnels, with doorways into the tunnels and so on, and you got people that are living next to those things, You should be interviewing those people. You know how people are. Many people will just tell you, yeah, they knocked down my door to put a tunnel over there, and so on. People will rat out the bad people.
Well, let me just say this, Mr. Hare, real quick. We know where Israel, in most cases, is getting their weaponry. Where's Hamas getting their weaponry?
From Iran.
From Iran.
Right. Well, at least the money to pay for the weapons is coming through Iran. But I think they have their own gun manufacturing facilities themselves in Iran. But the primary backer, and it's not just Iran, Saudi Arabia, the so-called friend of the United States.
Okay,
a lot of their money.
This is what I'm saying.
A lot of their money goes to fund these terrorist organizations as well.
There's got to be some conflict coming from groups.
Right. You got Qatar, or however you say that name, Qatar. You've got the United Arab Emirates. Mm-hmm. You got I can't pronounce the name of some of these words, these names, but you get the point that I'm making.
Yes,
You got these countries that are well off with oil, have a lot of cash, and they're using their cash to support these organizations that many people in the world consider to be terrorist organizations. Now, everybody who these people say is a terrorist organization might not be a terrorist organization in every context that you look at them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you're in South Africa during the years of apartheid rule of South Africa, and you were fighting the South Africans who had the African populations literally as a slave population in that country, the South Africans would look at you as a terrorist. But I'm pretty sure that the people in the United Nations of the world would not have looked at you as a terrorist if you were fighting to get your people freed from apartheid slavery, right? So everything is, everything has to be looked at from a perspective. So I know that we missed our window to talk to our sponsors. So let me get credit from my sponsors that I didn't forget. And let's take a quick break and talk to our sponsors. We will see you on the other side of the break here at Living for the People at 91.3 FM WBNY. We got to turn this.
Took the first step and quit smoking, but even former smokers may still be at risk for lung cancer. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know about a new low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early. It takes only 60 seconds and could save your life. You took the first step, now take the next. Visit SaveByTheScan.org for a simple quiz to see if you're eligible and talk to your doctor about screening. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
91.3 FM WBNY is proud to present Democracy Now! With Amy Goodman.
Welcome to Democracy Now!
Award-winning investigative journalism.
Is the NRA imploding?
Providing relevant analysis that makes you think.
Secret State Department documents, including evidence of U.S. war crimes.
Fact-finding reports you will not hear elsewhere. Democracy Now! Airs Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. on 91.3 FM WBNY Buffalo. Ready for radio that's challenging, innovative, and encouraging? Tune in, Living for the People.
This is L. Nathan Hare. Join me right here, 91.3 FM WBNY. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 a.m. after Amy Goodman's Democracy Now! We'll provide objective analysis regarding current issues. Call 878-5104. It's Living for the People on 91.3 FM WBNY. All right, welcome back to Living for the People. This is L. Nathan here, your host. We're here with Norm McCarter, who is our in-studio audience of one. Welcome back, Norm.
Thank you, Mr. Hare.
And we're here with Willie H., who is our engineer, who actually does the live streaming of this program. Welcome, Willie.
Welcome, everybody, to Living for the People with L. Nathan Hare.
So the whole world is watching. I need for us to understand this context. This is how these militia, terrorist, if you want to call them that, organizations, these cells, this is how they metastasize, how they go from being 1 or 2 or 6 people to becoming 600 and 6,000 and 60,000 people that are involved in a resistance, what they perceive as a resistance movement. This is how this occurs. The reason why we went from Al-Qaeda as a terrorist organization that attacked us in New York City and in Washington with the World Trade Center and the bombing of the plane crashing into the Pentagon. The reason why that turned into the war on terror, our war on terror created ISIS out of Al-Qaeda. We waged a war on terror supposedly in terms of going to war against Al-Qaeda. But we didn't go to war against Al-Qaeda, did we? We went to war against Afghanistan. And what did we do? We tried to change the regime who governs Afghanistan from a government that put up with having terrorists rent land in their country to a government that would be more friendly to the United States. Regime change. What happened? We killed some 60,000 Afghani people, and the Afghan nation turned into a place that harbors, what do you call the, I lose words in my head, the Taliban, that harbors the Taliban, and now the country is actually run by the Taliban. That was the outcome. After 22 years of war, from 2001 to today, all we ended up doing was turning Afghanistan into a country that was run by the same terrorist organization that we claim that we were fighting against, right? How can that possibly be a good thing? And the American people act like they don't get it. They act like, well, we walked away and there weren't too many American people that were killed. Only 4,100 American soldiers died in Afghanistan, so it couldn't have been that bad of a deal. No, it isn't that bad of a deal. You've turned something that was a organization, like the Black Panther Party or something, you turn it from a small organization like that into an entire country. Look what happened with Iraq, right? The government of Iraq is still not really friendly to the United States, right? So we are fighting supposedly a war against a terrorist organization, but we fight the war against whole countries. And when you fight the war against whole countries, you just create more and more people that have a beef with you as a country. We've said this many times during the course of the airing of this program over the years. At the end of the day, if you kill 5, 6, 7, 800,000 people in a country, when do you think they're going to let it go? That they're going to say, oh, well, that was in the past. We got to move forward to the future and let that go. When would you think people would let that go? The people that are arrayed at the United States in the Middle East right now are still beefing about the same thing. The 60,000 people in Afghanistan that were killed, the some 600,000 people in Iraq that have been killed, those people are never going to forget what happened to them. And if you think about the Armenians, remember we talked about this, Willie, before? The Armenians back in, I think it's the 1920s or 1910s, the Ottomans or the Turks killed like 100,000, of these Armenians. Wow. in an effort a genocide effort to drive them out of the country that became Armenia. Wow. And because they did that, you have Armenians all over the world that to this day, every time you talk to them about what happened in this massacre, you can see the veins pop out in their foreheads. You can see their scalps, muscles moving back and forth because they are still angry to be beyond belief. This happened 100 years ago, and they are still mad. if they would be mad about that 100,000 people in Armenia 100 years ago, what do you think people are feeling right now about what happened in Afghanistan and what happened happened in Iraq? We have got to think about this thing differently. The Israelis are creating the future terrorists of this world by what they're doing in Gaza today. Those people who are biologically or ethnically related or religiously related to the citizens of the Gaza Strip, those people harbor nothing but animosity towards not just Israel, but towards the United States, towards France, towards Canada, all those people that allied themselves with Israel. And Israel may feel like, well, we got all of us, we're bigger and badder and stronger than them. You may be. But cancer doesn't start out as a great big bad thing, right? Cancer starts out with a single cell, and it turns into 2 cells, then into 4 cells, then into 8 cells. It takes a while, but eventually it becomes big enough. It's grown into so many parts of your network that you can't move without them moving. That's right. You wind up with them coming with you everywhere you go. That's exactly what we're creating right now. That's just dumb for us as a nation. We're not thinking this thing through, right? I understand how Israelis feel, but killing all Palestinians in the Gaza Strip cannot be the answer.
That's right.
So I just wanted to get that off. I wanted to turn for a second. Norm doesn't take responsibility for the new Speaker of the House being elected in the House of Representatives. I tried to get him to take responsibility for it, but he said no, he doesn't know the man. His name's Mike Johnson. I know you act like you don't know him, but
Mike J.
There you go, MJ.
MJ.
MJ, right? An article written by Tom Hartman in the Raw Story talks about this new first press conference that Mike Johnson gave. He said, for example, let me characterize this the way Raw Story characterized it. They said that the billionaires surely picked the right guy. Mike Johnson's performance was flawless. It was slick. It was slimy. And it was unctuous. Unctuous is it stank, right? And he goes on to say that even though every dollar that the Internal Revenue Service spends auditing billionaires produces $6 to $12 in added tax revenue to our government. I want you to understand what they're talking about. The Biden administration put $80 billion on the table to be spent over a 10-year period to expand the Internal Revenue Service to turn it back into the size that it used to be 15 or 20 years ago before the Republicans got control of our government and literally decimated much of the workforce of the Internal Revenue Service. The Biden administration says we'd be able to collect taxes more efficiently if we had more people to do the work. Mm-hmm. So they put this money up to expand the Internal Revenue Service workforce. The Republicans say, "Oh no, that's terrible. You're punishing American citizens, auditing American citizens. You're just taking money away from regular Americans." No, they're not. No, they're not. The only people that are even going to be targeted for these audits are people that are making more than $400,000 a year. How many people do you know making more than $400,000 a year?
I think that's something that's needed. That sounds needed to me.
And the money that we're missing, $60, $80, $100 billion a year in revenue that we're missing, that is from people who are just not even bothering to file their taxes. Do you know that we had something like 40,000 Americans who make more than $400,000 a year who never even bothered to file their taxes?
Wow, yeah.
And not just once.
Money.
I mean, over the course of 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
Right.
Just don't file their taxes at all. Why? Because nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Right? There's not enough people in the Internal Revenue Service to do the work to go find people and I don't know what the right to investigate people.
Right.
And so on, and to bring cases against those people. That requires work. That requires people to do the work.
Manpower,
If you don't have enough manpower to do it, it just doesn't get done. So sooner or later, people start figuring out, man, Charlie said nobody audited him. He's making $400,000-$500,000 a year. I'm not going to file my taxes, this year. And that's what people are doing.
So what's really happening, Mr. Hare, is out there. Well, we already know that 1% ain't paying taxes. That we know. We know they ain't paying taxes. But even more than that, now you got people who make over probably $400,000 to $500,000. They making money, but they're not putting in the tax.
Right.
It's the people who paying the taxes. That's a smaller guy.
Right. It's the people that are paying the FICA tax. They're paying the Medicare tax. People that are making $75,000 to $200,000 a year, they're paying the full freight.
And I notice. I'm on my bag now. Mm-hmm. I notice when I go in neighborhoods, I do Ubering, and I notice in the prominent neighborhood, people that probably making over $100,000. I noticed that when you go to their stores, of course it's cleaner and better, but they pay less money.
Right.
Where the poor areas, they got the bodegas and all the other small stores, they pay twice or three times the amount.
That's because they're operating out of sort of delicatessens, whereas the people that you're seeing, they're operating out of stores that are sort of smaller versions of supermarkets. They're like small grocery stores,
right?
But they're a part of a syndicate, where there's maybe 20 or 30 stores in that syndicate. So they're buying at a price point that's almost similar to the price point that people are buying if you were buying for Super Duper or for Tops or for Wegmans and so on. So that's the distinction there, right? So money creates opportunities both to make money and to save money. Both of those things are happening. But if you're in the poorer groupings of people, those dynamics aren't happening.
You get the poor service. You get you got to pay double or three times as much as people who got money. It's like you can't win. So you get less and you pay more.
So if you spend money to increase the workforce of the Internal Revenue Service, it's only going to create more revenue coming into the government of the United States.
I agree.
We talked about this the week before last, and we got to keep this in our heads, that what's going on budgetarily in the United States is not that the United States is spending too much money. It may be spending more money than you might think it should be spending, but that's not the reason why we have the deficits that we have. We have the deficits because the United States is not taking in as much money as it should be. You have tax laws already on the books, but if people aren't paying the taxes, what good are the tax laws? So so in addition to the tax cuts that have been given, let me give you an example of what I mean by tax cuts. When Republican Dwight D. Eisenhower was sworn in 1953, the highest tax rate on the highest level of income was 92%. Let that roll on you for a minute. The tax rate on all of the income that you had above a certain amount, I think it was above $5 million, all the income that you got above $5 million was taxed at a 92% rate. So for every dollar that you made over the $5 million part, 92% of that dollar went back to the federal treasury. But you didn't hear anybody whining about that because during that time period, employers paid their workers well. They rolled corporate profits into research and development to develop new products, and America became the nation of innovation. So obviously that wasn't hurting doing what they were.
What year was this, Mr. Hare?
This was 1953.
1953.
But
wow.
it didn't just stop there.
92%. Wow.
It didn't just stop there. When John Kennedy was president, he kept the taxes for those higher tax brackets. The thing in 1946, at the end of World War II, our national debt was 119% of our GDP. Today, it's 123% of our. We actually owe 25% more money than we make in the course of a year. High taxes on billionaires and massive expenditures on American infrastructure like schools, hospitals, highways, and airports to stimulate the economy that's what the taxes are supposed to be used to pay for. But in just 7 short years, from 1946 to Eisenhower's inauguration, the debt came down to 68% of GDP. When John Kennedy was president, he kept the tax brackets high, that 92% range, or 91% for the top bracket of taxation. That was, check this out, for every dollar that you made over $400,000 a year, for every dollar that you made over $400,000 a year, people paid 91 cents in income taxes. Not on $5 million, on every dollar above
over
400,000. This is 1961.
Because they figure if you're making 400,000, you can get a lot of.
400,000 in 1961 is equivalent to $4 million today.
I believe it.
This is from the article that I'm reading, right? After Kennedy's assassination, Lyndon Johnson gave a tax cut for the morbidly rich in exchange for their going along with his Great Society programs, including Medicare and Medicaid. Now, this is where the rub begins to come in. He cut the top tax rate from 92% or 91%. He cut it down to 70%, although he closed many loopholes that were used by the rich. So he actually increased federal revenues because he collected taxes from more people. As innovative as Johnson's Great Society was, it began a trend of making investments in human beings a hostage to lowering taxes for the richest Americans. In other words, every time you did something like the WIC program or the home program or something like that to help people, the Republicans would insist you have to lower taxes in order for you to get that program. But if you lower taxes, which is how you pay for the programs,
right,
and you still do the programs, that's creating deficits.
Right.
Well, that's what the Republicans wanted, right? And so Republican Richard Nixon was fine with the 70% tax bracket for the morbidly rich, those making over $400,000, and he left the tax bracket in place. Throughout his presidency. But by the time he left the White House in 1974, our national debt was down to 31% of GDP. And it stayed that way even in Jimmy Carter's administration. Then it happened that during Jimmy Carter's presidency, 5 Republicans on the Supreme Court legalized for the first time in history, in the history of either America or other developed countries in the world, political bribery by billionaires and corporations alike. I can't go into the detail on this because we're at the end of our hour, but I want you to understand that what began to occur and is the process right now is they have been lowering taxes for the wealthy at the same time that they've been increasing services for the poor. And the direct result is our budgets are getting further and further out of balance. And we now have a runaway national debt. The problem is because we have not collected taxes that were owed, and we have not kept the tax rate at the high rate that it was when America was able to pay all of its debts. That's what's really got to be tackled. We'll talk about this on Wednesday here at Living for the People. We'll see you then on Wednesday, 9 a.m. I need you callers to call in so we know what you're thinking about what we're talking about. We'll see you on Wednesday.